Hey, what's going on? Luke here, and we're doing another video. This time I'm on holidays, but there was news that came out yesterday that I thought I needed to talk about, and that is the news about Cameron McInnes. Now, he's just gone out injured. I think he's done his ACL, I think it was, or something to do with the knee, with the ligaments and that, and he is out for the whole season. So he's officially done as a Dragon, essentially. I can't see him coming back early, and also, like, why would you want to rush back early for a team that you're leaving next year? Probably won't be in contention for a premiership or even the top 8. So I can't see him rushing back despite being the captain. Now, it's an unfortunate way for Cameron McInnes to end his stint at the Dragons, because I think it has been a really good one for him. Obviously, he started off as a bit of like a fringe first grader, let's be honest. I mean, at the Rabbitohs, he was in and out of first grade. Had a couple of goes. He was up against Coruscant, Damien Cook, even Robbie Farah. I think that was the final straw when they signed Robbie Farah and Damien Cook. Then he found himself as like a third string, which obviously is better than a third stringer. But yeah, the Rabbitohs definitely have developed quite a few hookers over the last probably 5-10 years. Isaac Luke, another one. But yeah, McInnes went to the Dragons, got his opportunity, and when they signed him, I remember thinking like, oh, he's going to be an okay player. Maybe we'll do a little bit for him. But I mean, they just lost Mitch Rain, who was I was like, well, he's, Mitch Rain wasn't like absolute dog shit. At times, he was actually quite good for the Dragons, but in the latter years, he sort of fell off, and obviously hasn't really gone to do much. Had since at Penrith and Titans, and I think he's still at the Titans. He's probably going to be the first string at the Titans, but I wouldn't say he's like a top quality hooker. But I kind of thought McInnes might have ended up in that sort of similar sort of category where he's all right, like he's decent, but he's not superstar. Whereas, well, I mean, I suppose he's not really a superstar, but he has become a very, very good hooker, a very, very solid quality hooker, a guy that you definitely want in your side. And as the Sharks have found, he's also, or the Dragons have found out firstly, but the Sharks assigned him to play lock essentially. So he shifted. He's sort of realised that the game is getting a lot quicker, and he doesn't have to play hooker to be valuable to a side. And I think that makes him a lot more dangerous too. It makes him a lot more probably inclined to get a job for New South Wales as well. I don't know if there's any thought about that in terms of as to why he wants to move to the lock position, but we've seen the lock, it's changed. Even like Jason Tambalalo is kind of getting phased out of that lock position, which I should probably do a video in itself. But Todd Payten's came out and said Tambalalo is probably going to play prop, play like 25-30 minutes rather than that whole game at lock. Because he wants him to just get in and be damaging. And I don't know about that one, but at the same time, we've seen the big sort of rise in those locks that are like Victor Radley, like Cameron Murray. Look, even to a degree, Jake Trbojevic is a little bit like it, where he's kind of robust enough. I mean, even him, he's starting to get a little bit one-dimensional, Jake, as much as I love him. But the ball-playing lock is becoming very, very important. Brandon Smith's another one who's super important in that role, or super effective in that role, I should say. And I think it is funny that like two of those guys I just talked about, McInnes and Brandon Smith, who have been half decent, were hookers who have moved to that lock position. So I can see there being a whole bunch of halves and hookers who are sort of the bigger sort of frames moving into that lock position. The only problem is it's just like there's so much more tackling stuff, so I don't know if halves can do it. But the hookers, Cameron McInnes is already used to being in the middle, making those tackles on the big guys. It's just now he's going to be taking some more hits from runs. But even then, I don't know how many runs he'll do. Obviously, he will, because he's such a workhorse and he's got the stamina to do it, so he's very capable. But yeah, in terms of the Sharks, I think it's a great signing for them. They needed someone since Paul Gallen in there to just clean up the ruck a little bit, because they got lots of good other players. They've still got Wade Graham and that, but they also lost Luke Lewis as well. They need experience. Cameron McInnes has got that. But basically, look, the point of this video was to talk about the injury and what this means for the Dragons in 2021. Now, honestly, I don't think too much changes. I don't think he was getting phased out in the number 9 position anyways. They wanted to sign Andrew McCullough, bring him over. I think they'll do that. Maybe Broncos played a little bit more hardball with him, which is funny. You think like Andrew McCullough, like teams are actually playing hardball over McCullough at this point in his career, when he's like 31, 32, whatever it is. Couldn't get a gig at clubs. They were literally like begging teams to take him last year. He actually looked all right for the Knights when he played, but the point is the Broncos were trying desperately to get rid of him. Now all of a sudden they're like, hang on, we might keep you around, because Turpin is a bit injury prone. Might keep you around. I think they're trying to get Billy Walters up there too. He can play a little bit of 9, so maybe that will help it a little bit. But in terms of the Dragons, I think McCullough will end up as a hooker. They've got Billy Britton there as well. I think it's how you say it, Brittain, something like that. Billy Britton. Let's go Britton. But he was the hooker of the year, I believe player of the year in New South Wales Cup a couple of years ago. But I think he's someone who's probably not capable of making like a big jump up in first grade. But I mean, Damien Cook didn't even get a start in first grade until he was like mid-20s. So he wouldn't be the first guy to get a go in the hook position and take the next step, take the next level up, and do it well. But I can't see him really getting the opportunity. Maybe a little bit off the bench. I mean, he was at the Rabbitohs for a little while, and I thought he might have got a bench spot for them when they were having Damien Cook. He wasn't playing the whole game in that. And instead he sort of ends up at the Dragons. I was actually surprised he ended up at the Dragons out of all clubs, Britain, because I feel like there was teams like the Bulldogs and stuff who've been crying out for a hooker. You had the guy who literally got Player of the Year in New South Wales Cup, and he goes to the Dragons, who already were kind of, I don't know, Dragons have always been kind of decent with hookers. You look at them right now. They had McInnes, you got Ben Hunt there, about Simon McCullough. They're a team that is usually got a pretty decent hooker. It's just the rest of the side just can't put it together for some reason. But losing Frizzell, now losing McInnes, and also losing McInnes this year now, even though they're losing him next year, but they've essentially just lost him this year. I feel like if he hadn't got injured, I feel like he probably would have ended up at the Sharks anyway at some point this year. But it's come early for them, so they're going to have to deal with life without Cameron McInnes. De Bellin's stuff still happening. Got the Tristan Sailor stuff. It's a lot of turmoil for the Dragons, but this one they couldn't help. This one was an injury. But in hindsight, now looking back, it kind of makes Anthony Griffin look a lot better, because I feel like he was looking like an absolute mug. He was looking like a big twat at this point with how he was handling this whole Cameron McInnes situation. Here you have your hooker of your club. You've got him going to literally a rival. Now, I know the rivals aren't huge these days in the NRL in terms of like Dragons and Cronulla and that, but there still is a rivalry. Out of any club he could go to, he goes there. Even after there was talk of going to the Tigers and Bulldogs and all these other clubs, he ends up there. So that was a big sort of slap in the face of Dragons fans, I suppose. Not only is your captain leaving, but going to a rival. You add in the whole Andrew McCullough situation. It's just strange, because you go from having McInnes going to McCullough. The whole point of getting rid of McInnes out of the hooker position was so you could get like a faster sort of guy in there. And you go and sign McCullough, who's like another version of McInnes, essentially, probably a crappier version of McInnes. Actually, you know what, McCullough, I'm probably underrating him there a little bit, but it's also he's coming off a lot of injuries too. So it'd be interesting to see how McCullough actually bounces back from injury himself, especially moving positions too. At the hook position, I suppose he can get in there, still a bit of passing. His game isn't built on speed and all that, which I think helps him. But at the same time, ACLs, like all that sort of stuff, they're very, very hard to come back from. Not hard to come back from, well, they are, but they're not like a career ender. But if your game is based on speed, you are going to be super hampered by it, and you're going to have to try and develop something else in your game, which thankfully for Cameron McInnes, his game wasn't built on that. But at the same time, the lock position, all those guys are talking about, yes, they got ball playing skills, but your Radleys and Cameron Murrays and that, they have a lot of speed and agility too. You're in the middle there. You're going to be taking those little runs in behind the markers and that sort of stuff. Do a bit of ball playing, and you need a little bit of speed for that one. So I think McInnes should be fine in that sense. I think he'll be all right to come back from it. But it is definitely a punch in the guts for McInnes. He'd just been forced out of the Dragons, essentially, and then this happens to end his Dragons career. Doesn't even get like a farewell season, especially being the captain of the club. You would have loved to have seen him get a bit of a farewell one, especially after all the years he's given the Dragons, all the good years, I should say. Because he hasn't been there for like super long, but the years that he has been there have been very good, been getting Player of the Year, year after year, and just the fact that they lost Frizzell as well, and now him, and sort of the gains that they've got haven't really been too great as well. I mean, they got a new coach, but in terms of actual player signings in that, not too many. They lost Ewan Aiken as another one. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with the Dragons, and especially Anthony Griffin. I say they got a new coach, but is even an upgrade on McGregor? At this point, I'd say no, especially with recruitment and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I don't want to bag on the Dragons too much, but it's very hard to do at the moment, because they're just making bonehead move after bonehead move. And I feel like everybody out there can see it, apart from the Dragons. They went and signed Anthony Griffin, who's very controversial to say the least, especially after how he's left other clubs. He's had a good Broncos side. He's had a very, very good Penrith side, and both of them have gone on to bigger and better things as soon as he left. Ivan Cleary took over from him essentially with Penrith, and obviously got him to the grand final last year, got him in a good position. I think, to be fair, when he actually had the Penrith side, he had him in the top four, but he was so controversial, and that was the year that they were going against his game plan essentially, and would get into a bit of a grind in the end of the game, and then go, stuff it, we're losing here, we've got to toss his game plan to the side because we're getting smashed, and then they'd come back and they'd win. So I can't even put that down to him. It was just more he had a good team with him. The Broncos, played like shit under him. He made some very stupid decisions. I've talked about it quite a bit, but this was the same guy who was taking guys like Ben Barber and bulking them up, and everything that made them good, all their pace, their agility, their footwork, all that sort of stuff, they just end up injured because they're too heavy, and then their speed would go as well because they're too heavy. Pretty sure he was a guy who wanted Josh Hoffman to play 5'8", despite being a sort of average bulk standard fullback, no ball playing skills, and they chuck him in 5'8". I thought that was a dumb move, especially when they had Ben Barber there. You could have chucked him in. It's just, I just don't think he's a good coach, and he's very, very old school, and I think his opinions go against what players want, and I think we're going to see a lot of turmoil at the Dragons over the next year, and I wouldn't be surprised if he gets sacked this year, but I suppose they did hold out with McGregor for a long time, so who knows what they're going to do with Anthony Griffin. Will he get hooked? Probably not. But yeah, just the whole McInnes situation has been disappointing with how the club's handled it, with how just everything's been handled essentially. And I can't really work it out. And even at the end of the day, if McInnes wanted to leave and said, like, I'm not re-signing with you, there's better guys you can get than Andrew McCullough, especially for the money that they want. Like, it's one thing, say like the Knights last year, they got McCullough on a really good deal because he didn't want much money, the Broncos were willing to pay most of the contract. Now, they're going to be paying like $600,000 or whatever it is from Andrew McCullough, 31-year-old, off injuries, hasn't really had a great season in many, many years. And like I said, injuries. Talking about McInnes, like what's he going to be like when he comes back? I think McCullough did something fairly similar. I can't remember what it was, but I know it was a long-term injury. So you got another long-term injury to him after a couple of seasons of injury. So yeah, I don't know what the go is with the Dragons. Leave in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the McInnes injury? Is it going to be that big of a deal for the Dragons, or is it kind of like the season's a bit of a write-off already? It doesn't really matter. It is disappointing for McInnes just personally, but yeah, as a club, I can't really see too much different happening. But McInnes, he's been the flavour of the month at the moment, hasn't he? I feel like he's someone we don't really talk about. Except Origin sort of comes up, you may think, oh, is he going to get on the bench? But that's sort of the most of the talk with McInnes. And then all of a sudden this month, we're talking about, oh, is he going to go here? Is he going to go there? And then he signed for the Sharks, and now he's injured, and what's going to happen? Like, it's just been a crazy month for Cameron McInnes. All of a sudden he's in the headlines after not really being in too many headlines up to that point. But yeah, leave in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on McInnes? Good move going to the Sharks now. Maybe the Sharks, they might look to get out of that contract. Who knows? Anyways, this is where I'm going to wrap up the video. Hopefully you did enjoy it. If you did, make sure you go ahead and give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. It's also very important you turn on the notification bell as well. Unless you'll be notified immediately, you get a little thing on your phone that says, yep, Luke's uploaded. Click on the video, you can watch it. You can leave a little first comment if you want. Do all that sort of stuff. Also, make sure you go and follow me on social media as well. It's on screen right now. It's Mr. Luke on YT for the most part. Mr. Luke just on Facebook if you want to give me a follow on that. But Mr. Luke on YT for everything else, including Snapchat. So go ahead and give me a follow and give me an ad on that. Anyways, that's where I'm ending this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video. See yous.